ABC's Jay O'Brien joins me now from Capitol Hill with more. So, Jay, Democrats already have control of the Senate by a slim majority. We just talked about that. Just lay out what Democrats, what they really want here to secure, why they really want to secure this Georgia Senate seat.
Well, there's a number of reasons, and you heard Rick lay some of them out. Firstly, it would make the business of the Senate on Democrats' side a little bit easier. It would be easier for judicial nominations, and also on legislation. Americans over the last few years have really learned the names of Kyrsten Sinema, right, and Joe Manchin, who have been those Democratic holdout votes on certain key pieces of legislation. But if Raphael Warnock holds on to his seat, Democrats could afford to lose one of those senators and still pass things 50-50 in the Senate with the vice president as the tie-breaking vote, as you had said earlier. The other thing it does for Joe Manchin, for Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democratic leader, for example, is it gives him a little bit of breathing room on those pieces of legislation. But one thing it doesn't do is that any legislation that comes out of a Democrat-controlled Senate would run up come January against a Republican-controlled House and face certainly some opposition there, depending on what legislation it is.
So newly elected Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries spoke to our George Stephanopoulos during a This Week exclusive on Sunday. Let's take a look at part of that conversation and talk about it.
But you did say that history will never accept Donald Trump as a legitimate president, and the Republicans are making quite a big issue out of that. What is your response?
Well, here's the Republican playbook. Facts don't matter. Hypocrisy is not a constraint to their behavior. And in many cases, they believe that shamelessness is a superpower. My view of the situation has been pretty clear. I supported the certification of Donald Trump's election. I attended his inauguration, even though there were many constituents and others across the country pushing me and others to do otherwise, and found ways to work with the Trump administration, being the lead Democrat in negotiating historic criminal justice reform. That track record speaks for itself. At the same time, I will never hesitate in criticizing the former president. I think I'm in good company there throughout the world.
Shamelessness is a superpower. I'm going to remember that one. Jeffries pretty much slamming Trump, but still expressing his willingness to work with Republicans across the aisle, Jay. He also spoke to George about Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, now running for Speaker.
Yeah, and what he said on working across the aisle was that there is opportunity for common ground. On what specifically is unclear, but you're right. George pressed him on whether or not Democrats would potentially help bail out Republicans in this speaker fight that potentially might come to the floor in early January. And here's why that's important. Kevin McCarthy needs 218 votes to become the next Speaker of the House. He's been nominated by his party, but there will be a vote on the floor for that job in early January. He needs 218, but 5 Republicans have already said under no circumstances will they vote for Kevin McCarthy. And sources in that side of the party, the further right of the Republican party, tell me that there might even be more Republicans who will come out against Kevin McCarthy, although who they are is unclear. So Kevin McCarthy may need some extra support, because if he loses all 5 of those Republicans, that might be fatal to that job he's wanted for decades. And so George pressed Hakeem Jeffries on if Democrats would potentially come in, maybe bail out McCarthy or back someone else for Speaker in a compromise with more moderate Republicans. Jeffries poured cold water on that. He downplayed the possibility of that happening. But it certainly underscores the fact that Kevin McCarthy is in a perilous position right now for a job that he's wanted for a long time. Worth pointing out, Republican leadership in the House, McCarthy's allies have said they expect him to get those 218 votes come January. I know from sources that he's working on Republican members, both on the further right and in the moderate of the party and everybody in between. So they expect him to pick up that ground come early January. The question is, does he actually do it?
Meanwhile, we're waiting on the House committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol to release its final report before Republicans actually officially take majority in the House in a few weeks. What do you think we can expect from that final report, Jay?
Well, first, the open question is, when does it come out? Chair Benny Thompson of the January 6th committee told our colleague Catherine Faulders the report will come out before Christmas, but when between now and Christmas is unclear. It will be a compilation of those 1,000+ interviews that the January 6th committee has done, all of their investigatory work. We know from those hearings that we saw that they're only playing, as it relates to those interviews, just snippets of those interviews. There's a lot more ground that they've covered, but they haven't shown to the American people. So that's what's going to go into that report. But their position as the January 6th committee, once Republicans take control, will obviously be much different. The committee will very likely be disbanded. And we have heard from Republicans, Kevin McCarthy being one of them, who've said they want to investigate the January 6th committee's investigation once they take power come January.
Jay O'Brien on the Hill for us. Jay, thanks.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.